the dignity it deserves.
On July 27, 2025, in the tranquil heart of Oslo, Norway, a moment unfolded that would redefine the global narrative on peace. The Norwegian Nobel Committee, custodians of the world's most hallowed accolade, announced their shortlist for the 2025 Nobel Peace Prize. Among the 5 names read aloud, one ignited a firestorm of awe, debate and hope: Ibrahim Traoré, the 36-year-old interim president of Burkina Faso. This was no mere nomination, it was a clarion call, a challenge to the very foundations of how the world perceives leadership, governance and peace in the 21st century. Traoré, a soldier who seized power in a military coup in September 2022, stood not as a politician molded by elite institutions or a diplomat polished by global summits, but as a man of the soil, a leader whose vision of peace was rooted in the sweat of farmers, the dreams of children, and the resilience of a nation long relegated to the margins. His name, spoken in the austere halls of Oslo, sent ripples from the dusty streets of Ouagadougou to the corridors of power in Paris, Washington and beyond, demanding a reckoning with what peace truly means in an era of fracture and flux. The announcement was electric. In the minimalist elegance of the Nobel Institute, journalists leaned forward, pens poised, as the committee's chair uttered Traoré's name. Diplomats exchanged glances, their whispers mingling with the weight of history. A young African leader, barely in his 4th decade, from a nation ranked among the world's poorest, was now a contender for an honor synonymous with the legacies of Nelson Mandela, Malala Yousafzai, and Martin Luther King Jr. Traoré's journey from a village boy to a global symbol was a testament to the power of conviction over convention, action over rhetoric, and hope over despair. This is the epic tale of Ibrahim Traoré, the farmer in uniform who turned battlegrounds into farmlands, despair into dignity, and a nation's struggle into a beacon for the world. Ibrahim Traoré was born in 1988 in a small village in Burkina Faso, a landlocked nation in the arid expanse of West Africa's Sahel region. His childhood was etched by the relentless realities of poverty. The sun beat down on cracked earth, electricity was a rare visitor, and hunger was a constant companion. Yet within this crucible of hardship, Traoré's spirit was forged. His parents, subsistence farmers who wrested life from unforgiving soil, instilled in him a reverence for the land and a fierce sense of duty. "The earth is our mother," his mother would say, her hands calloused from years of toil. "Treat her with respect, and she will provide." Those words became the bedrock of Traoré's life, shaping a boy who saw not limitations but possibilities in the dust beneath his feet. The military was Traoré's path to opportunity. In a country where education was a luxury, the army offered structure, discipline, and a chance to rise. He joined not for power, but for purpose, driven by a desire to serve a nation he saw slipping into chaos. By his early 30s, he had earned a reputation as a captain of unwavering integrity, respected by his soldiers for his fairness, and by his superiors for his resolve. But as he climbed the ranks, he witnessed a nation unraveling. Burkina Faso was bleeding. Insurgent groups linked to Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State ravaged the northern and eastern regions, displacing over 2 million people and leaving a trail of death and destruction. The government, led by President Roch-Marc Christian Kabore, seemed impotent, unable to stem the violence or address the deeper wounds of poverty, corruption and exploitation by foreign powers. By September 2022, the situation was untenable. Multinational corporations controlled vast swaths of Burkina Faso's farmland, exporting profits while locals starved. Foreign aid, often laden with exploitative conditions, offered no real salvation. For Traoré and a cadre of young officers, the breaking point had come. On September 29, 2022, they staged a bloodless coup, ousting Kabore and naming Traoré interim president at the age of 34. The world recoiled. Military coups were seen as anathema to democracy, relics of a darker era. The African Union suspended Burkina Faso's membership, and Western capitals issued stern condemnations. But Traoré stood resolute. In his first address to the nation, delivered in a simple military uniform, he spoke not of conquest but of creation. "We did not come to rule," he declared, his voice steady as the Sahel winds. "We came to rebuild." Those words, raw and unadorned, marked the dawn of a revolution unlike any other, a revolution not of ideology or power, but of labor, unity and truth. Traoré's vision for Burkina Faso was as audacious as it was elemental: peace through self-reliance. In an age of performative diplomacy and hollow promises, he chose the ancient virtues of work, sacrifice and community. His battlefield was not the war-torn north but the hunger that plagued every village, the ignorance that dimmed young minds, and the despair that crushed the human spirit. His weapons were not guns but schools, clinics and seeds. Within months of taking power, Traoré unleashed a torrent of reforms that would transform Burkina Faso and send shockwaves across Africa and the world. The insurgency that had torn Burkina Faso apart was Traoré's first challenge. Rather than escalating the cycle of violence, he chose a path of radical reconciliation. Over 12,000 former militants, men and women who had once fought under the banners of terror, were welcomed back into society through community dialogues, vocational training, and resettlement programs. Traoré worked tirelessly with local leaders from village elders to religious figures to create spaces where former fighters could lay down their weapons and pick up tools. Carpenters, farmers and artisans emerged from the ashes of conflict, their hands now building rather than destroying. On May 4, 2025, Traoré took this vision further, pardoning 1,100 former militants and enrolling them in the Farmers of Peace program. This initiative, hailed by the United Nations as a global model for post-conflict reconciliation, turned battlegrounds into fertile fields. In villages along the Nadanon River, men who once manned checkpoints now operated irrigation pumps, their overalls emblazoned with the words Farmers of Peace. The impact was staggering. Terror attacks dropped by 70%, and communities once divided by fear began to heal. In the town of Kaya, a former militant named Musa Zongo spoke for many when he said, "I fought because I had nothing. Traoré gave me a purpose, a field, a future, a home." This approach was not without risk. Reconciliation required trust in a nation scarred by betrayal, courage in a region where vengeance was the norm, but Traoré's conviction was unshakable. "These are not enemies," he said. "They are our brothers and sisters, led astray by despair. Our duty is to bring them back to the light." His words resonated not just in Burkina Faso but across the Sahel, where similar conflicts had left deep wounds. The Farmers of Peace program became a symbol of hope, a testament to the power of second chances and the possibility of peace forged through unity rather than division. Perhaps Traoré's boldest move was the reclamation of 3.8 million hectares of farmland from foreign corporations. For decades, multinational agribusinesses had dominated Burkina Faso's fertile plains, extracting wealth while local farmers languished in poverty. In a single defiant act, Traoré's government nationalized key agricultural assets and redistributed the land to smallholder farmers. "The land is not for sale," he declared, echoing the revolutionary spirit of Thomas Sankara, Burkina Faso's iconic leader. "It belongs to those who work it, who love it, who live by it." This act of economic sovereignty sent shockwaves through global markets. Farmers, now empowered with land, seeds and tools, began cultivating maize, sorghum and millet, transforming rural economies. In the village of Pisola, a farmer named Fatoumata Ouedraogo described the change. "Before Traoré, we were tenants on our own land, begging for scraps. Now we grow our own food, and our children no longer go to bed hungry." Markets overflowed with locally grown produce, and food insecurity, once a daily reality, began to recede. The move also struck a blow against Burkina Faso's dependence on foreign aid, signaling to the world that the nation would forge its own path. The reclamation of land was more than an economic policy. It was a cultural and spiritual rebirth. Farmers, long marginalized, stood taller, their hands reclaiming not just the soil but their dignity. In the town of Gorom Gorom, a market vendor named Ayesa Diallo said, "When Traoré gave us back the land, he gave us back our pride. We are no longer beggars, we are builders." The ripple effects were profound. Local economies flourished, rural communities thrived, and Burkina Faso began to rewrite its story as a nation of resilience and self-determination. Traoré's vision extended far beyond Burkina Faso's borders. The Sahel, a region ravaged by desertification and climate change, became the canvas for one of his most ambitious projects, the Sahel Life Alliance. In partnership with Mali and Niger, Traoré led a regional coalition to plant 800 million trees across the arid landscape, transforming barren wastelands into green corridors of hope. The initiative created thousands of jobs, restored degraded ecosystems, and fostered a sense of solidarity among nations long divided by conflict and scarcity. Environmentalists hailed the Sahel Life Alliance as a triumph of climate justice, a model for
villages along the Nadanon River. Former fighters now clad in overalls labeled Farmers of Peace fired up diesel pumps to irrigate maize instead of manning checkpoints. Beyond Burkina Faso, celebrations echoed across the Sahel in Niamey and Bamako. Youth collectives projected cell phone videos of Traoré onto public walls, chanting, "One Sahel, one dream." Local Africa news correspondents reported impromptu dance circles spinning past midnight, even in drought-stricken hamlets where electricity flickers off at dusk. The message was simple: if a country ranked among the world's poorest can reclaim its dignity, so can they. Not everyone joined the jubilation. Some elders worried aloud that global recognition brings fresh geopolitical pressure. Yet even skeptics admitted the facts: terror attacks down, farm yields up, clinics open, children fed. They witnessed neighbors once divided by ethnicity now joining hands to plant saplings, 5 at a time, each tagged with the words Liberté, Travail, Dignite. On July 27th, just one day after the Nobel Peace Prize nomination was announced, the leaders of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger appeared together at a historic press conference in Ouagadougou. With solemn expressions and unwavering voices, they issued a joint declaration calling Traoré's nomination not a personal glory, but proof that Africa can break free from a history written by others. They declared a new phase of regional cooperation beyond military alliances to include agriculture, education, public health, and local media. A new institution, the Joint Civil Command of the Sahel, was announced to coordinate programs for food security, post-conflict resettlement, and rural medical infrastructure. Neighboring countries like Guinea, Chad, and Togo sent official congratulations, hinting that Traoré's model of self-reliance, regional solidarity, and rejection of foreign debt could become a new blueprint for African development within the African Union. Debate quickly intensified. Many AU delegates urged reconsideration of the rapid response mechanism, originally designed to isolate governments that came to power via military coups. One political commissioner, speaking anonymously, told the press, "We cannot keep judging leaders by how they rise to power. We must judge them by the roads they build for their people." In Europe and the United States, diplomats cautiously acknowledged Traoré's growing legitimacy. While maintaining concern over democratic norms, several envoys expressed respect for the region's sovereign path. Quietly, some international lenders reopened communication channels with Burkina Faso, something unthinkable months ago when the country cut ties with the IMF. The Nobel nomination has become far larger than a prize. It is a symbolic turning point, an announcement that Africa is no longer speaking with borrowed voices. This time, the continent speaks for itself, and the world, perhaps for the first time in generations, is listening. In a spontaneous speech from the balcony of the presidential palace, Traoré addressed the crowd. "This nomination is not mine alone. It belongs to every mother who fed a child from her own field, to every youth who picked up a shovel instead of a rifle, to every teacher who taught under a tree. We are building peace not to impress the world, but to survive." Students and youth movements on university campuses across Africa erupted in solidarity. In Bamako, Niamey, Accra, and Kinshasa, students held forums and vigils. On social media, the hashtag Nobel for Africa trended globally, with young Africans demanding recognition for leaders who work the land instead of the lecture circuit. In Lagos, a student activist tweeted, "Traoré did not wear a suit. He wore boots. He didn't go to Davos. He went to the fields. That's why this Nobel matters." In Johannesburg, university students organized an art exhibit titled Fields of Peace, showcasing paintings, installations, and poetry inspired by Traoré's agricultural revolution. Pan-African support grew stronger. Leaders from Mali, Niger, Guinea, and Chad issued a joint statement. If he wins, it is not the victory of one man. It is the vindication of a continent. A farmer president is more powerful than a president in exile. A well-fed village is stronger than a foreign loan. Pan-African media called it a turning point, with several newspapers describing the nomination as a slap to the old order, not just of global politics, but of how Africa is seen and how Africa sees itself. On December 10, 2025, the eyes of the world will turn to Oslo. On that day, one name will be etched into the legacy of the Nobel Peace Prize. For millions across Africa, Hope carries a single face, Ibrahim Traoré. At 36 years old, he represents a new generation of leadership, neither beholden to foreign creditors nor shaped by Western think tanks. If awarded, Traoré would become the first sitting African head of state to win the Nobel Peace Prize, the first leader nominated despite rising to power through a military transition, and a global symbol of what some call practical peace, not negotiated in hotel ballrooms, but sown into fields, classrooms, and clinics. Whatever the outcome in Oslo, one thing is certain: Traoré's story has already shifted the global conversation. He is not just a candidate for the Nobel. He is a mirror to the contradictions of our time and a reminder that peace is not the absence of war, but the presence of justice, dignity, and land in the hands of those who till it. As the final decision nears, the world watches not just to see who wins, but to understand what peace truly means in the 21st century.
Thank you for standing with us, for standing with the truth, and for standing with President Ibrahim Traoré. In these trying times, your voice is powerful. Don't just watch, be part of the movement. Subscribe to stay updated, share to awaken others, and head to the comment section. Tell us how you feel, what you believe, and what Africa means to you. Together we are louder, together we are stronger. This is Young Patriots TV, and you are the heartbeat of the mission. Thank you.